How you doing? Good girl. Good evening, everyone. Just a second. Would you please stand and join for the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the Treasure Map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are glad to see all of you here, especially newcomers. In keeping with our singleness to purpose and our third tradition, which states that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking, we ask that all who participate combine their discussions to the problems with alcohol. The AA preamble reprinted with permission of Grapevine Incorporated. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not aligned with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. We want to send a special welcome to anyone here from out of town. If you would, please stand and introduce yourself. Anybody from out of town?
Stan alcoholic.
Welcome, Stan. Dan, thank you.
Lonnie.
Welcome, Lonnie.
Welcome.
Also, is there anyone here at the Treasure Map meeting for the very first time? Please stand and introduce yourself. Anybody new? No? And finally, is there anyone here at the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Please stand and introduce yourself. We wanted you to know that we're very glad you're here and that you are welcome. We have a special gift for you, so please see me at the break and I will present it to you. Anybody new? No? Okay. Please feel free to use the Treasure Map meeting cards. They're over there. And you put your name on the back of them. They're great for handing out contact information for sponsorship and so on, and also to invite people to our meeting. Now, would you join me in welcoming Ann and Angie to read how it works. You come prepared with your own book. I'm impressed.
How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such informations. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. These are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in general way what we to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have, and we are willing to get it any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of those, we balked. We thought we could fight and find an easier way, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnest tones at our command, we beg of you to be fearless of those from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas. The result was nil until we let absolutely go. Remember, we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling power without help is too much for us. But there is one who has all the power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which we suggested as a program of recovery.
1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thank you, Angie. And thank you too, Ann. Appreciate it. The 7th tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. If you do not carry cash with you, an online fulfillment of Step 7 tradition is available. If you do give online, please take one of these cards and place it in the basket as it is passed. We thank you for your support, your donations to Treasure Map meetings, support all our group activities. In addition, they pay the rent, coffee, snacks, and literature. Plus, happily support our local AA intergroup, South Dakota Regional District 5, statewide Area 63, and a General Service Office supporting Alcoholics Anonymous around the world. Now, if you would please join me in welcoming Lonnie to read the 12 traditions.
I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, and that's a loving God as he expresses himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are trusted servants, not governor. 3, the only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters which affect the group or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, is carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group never endorse, finance, or lend AA name to any related facility or outside enterprises. Thus, problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous remains forever non-professionals, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we can create service boards and committees directly responsible for those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be endorsed, it never be brought into public controversy. 11, our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you, Lonnie. Now, would you please welcome our first speaker, Jane, if you would please come up.
Hi, my name is Jane and I'm an alcoholic. Nick asked me to share my story here tonight, and this is my first shot at doing something like this, so just have to bear with me through this, and it'll be over in about 15 minutes. So. My sobriety date is August 28th of 2012. So if you do the math, I've been sober for about 7 years. I started drinking when I was in high school. The thing I remember the most about growing up is that I just felt odd. And I remember that I always wanted to be like somebody else. If I was only like Mona Anderson, or if I was only like this person, then I would be cool. But, I got in with the drinking crowd and party crowd, and that's where I had my fun. And one event that happened in my life when I was in high school was my dad passed away when I was a senior in high school. So that only added to this odd feeling that I had. People really didn't know what to do with me. There were, at that point in time, there really wasn't a lot of grief counseling or that type of thing available. So, I kind of made my way through that. And of course, alcohol helped that, that just made all the pain go away. I went on to college and moved to Springfield, South Dakota. I have a sister that lives out there and, fit right in with the drinking crowd there. After that, I moved to Colorado. I spent a lot of years in Colorado. I was married, pursued a career, worked. I had a pretty good job. But at this point, I had become a daily drinker. And I also struggled with some mental health issues. I had some anxiety that I was dealing with, which I sought help for, but obviously any type of medication that I was taking wasn't very effective if I was drinking with that as well. I was working at a job for about 8 years, and I'd had some dealings with my immediate boss and just back and forth and for years, and I knew that was just the way she was, and I tolerated that. But one day it took it over the edge, and the next day I walked in and I gave them my 2 weeks notice. And when I think back on that, I think that, you spiral, you're on a downward spiral long before you fall. And that may have been the start of it. I don't know. But, I just was like, I thought that I'm gonna show you guys, I'm gonna quit my job. How are you gonna run this place without me? They're still running the place without me. Soon after that, I was divorced. I'd gotten married, got divorced, and didn't really secure a job after I left that one that I'd been at for 8 years. And I had this great big idea that I'd go back to school. And so I incurred great debt to do that. And I dragged my brother into that as well. I know now that I manipulated him into co-signing for a loan for me, and he's my brother, and he's a good brother, and he did it. And in addition to other loans, and so this great debt that I incurred, and I was going to concentrate on my studies, right? So I didn't work at that time. So that school loan money funded not only my schooling, but it funded my consumption of alcohol. I did well in school, but I also did well at my drinking career. Drinking was a way of life, really, for me. When I was younger, my family drank, so I didn't really think anything of it. But I continued on after the normal time that people start to take responsibility in their life to, go on to, living a regular life. Like after college, most people kind of grow into their adult life. I was still partying. I was still, there wasn't anything that I did that didn't involve alcohol. That was just how I was. And so I got out of school, and I was still in Colorado at the time, and I decided to leave Colorado. I'd lived there for a lot of years, and it was getting really crazy out in Colorado. And so I moved back to the western side of the state near my sister, and at that point, it was at a pretty severe level, and I didn't really establish myself in that community. I wasn't able to secure a job. I was living in a motel for a while. And even though I was around my family, I became a burden to them. My mental health was also still a problem. So in June and July of 2012, I got DUIs back to back, and I was just a mess. I was in a pretty dark place, and I was drinking, and my family were really frustrated with me. And so on August 27th of 2012, which is my birthday, my belly button birthday, I was sitting in a bar in Spearfish, and a sheriff came in looking for me. Now, there is no place to run when you're sitting in a bar and a sheriff comes looking for you. So I was taken to detox in Rapid City. My family had placed an IVC on me, which is an involuntary committal. And part of what they wanted was for me to go to the Human Services Center in Yankton, because I could not only get drug and alcohol treatment, but I could also get some mental health help. So I had to wait for a bed at the Human Services Center. So I was in detox in Rapid City for 24 days. And I was not, I was mentally not in a very good place to be in that environment. So, but that's where I was at. And on the 24th day, so this IVC, and we had to go through some legal stuff, and they kind of told me that they were gonna wake me up early one morning and take me to Yankton. So on the 24th day, they woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they put me in handcuffs and shackles, gave me a bag lunch, and put me on a prison bus across the state of South Dakota. It was a long ride. And I got to the Human Services Center, and I was on the drug and alcohol unit, but I was in, mental health is part of my story, and I'm not going to get a whole lot into that tonight, but I was really not participating in what was going to help me as far as drug and alcohol was concerned. And so I had some medical issues, of which I ended up at the Sacred Heart Hospital for a few days. And then when I came back to HSC, I did have to go to a different unit for a few days before I could come back to the drug and alcohol unit, which I did. So I had a little bit of an extended stay at HSC, and HSC is a pretty institutionalized treatment facility. So, I was behind locked doors and things like this. So, it came time that I was going to be leaving, and I still was under this IVC, and so it was decided that I was going to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'd never been to Sioux Falls. I didn't know anybody in Sioux Falls. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Sioux Falls, because I was going to go stay at Changing Choices because I was still under this IVC. And I was feeling pretty good getting out of there, and then I was in this controlled environment again, and I was doing pretty good for a while, but then the whole reality of my life kind of come tumbling down, of the mess that I had made in my life, and I didn't have money. I had great debt, which that debt was a big deal to me. I was really shameful of that, and so I didn't have a job. I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have money. It wasn't like I never established myself in South Dakota, so I didn't really have a place to go home to. I couldn't really go live with my family. I wasn't at an age where you move home, really. And so when it came time for me to leave the Changes and Choices, one of the things that they offered, I didn't have a lot of choices. Didn't have a lot of options. And one of the things that they had recommended to me was the St. Francis House. And so, wow, it's a homeless shelter. And wow, I was just like, the shame and the humiliation that I felt when I was going to go move into this St. Francis House was just incredible. And, but that was where I needed to go. I mean, that was the option that I had to take. So, I moved in there and, I started going to meetings. Part of the deal was when you're living in those kinds of environments, you have to attend meetings. So, one of the first times I went to a meeting, and I heard somebody introduce themselves and they said they were a grateful alcoholic. I was like, yeah, right. Really, I couldn't believe it. How could you possibly be grateful at a grateful alcoholic? But really, I just did the next thing that I needed to do. I went to meetings. I had some doctor's appointments, some counseling appointments, some therapy appointments. I just kept doing the next thing that I needed to do. And really, when I look back on that time right now, I don't know really how I did it, but I just kept doing the next thing. And I think about that poem, Footprints in the Sand, where I was carried, because I really believe that I was carried through that time. The St. Francis House was a real experience for me. I met a lot of people there. Some of them were kind of scary. Some of them were kind of crazy. But I met some really incredible people there that they may have been there as a result of their addiction, but they may have been there as a result of some really poor life choices. They had just fallen on hard times. And so, the part of living there was you had to remain sober, and you did a breathalyzer each night. And if you failed that breathalyzer, you lost your bed that night. Like, that was it. And I seen it happen, and I was terrified because, like, I really didn't have any place to go. And so, I really believe that I wouldn't be sober today if I didn't live there. I ended up living there for about a year, because I really had to take some time to kind of rebuild my life and try to figure out where I was going to go with it. I learned about accountability. I learned that I needed help, and I had to be willing to accept that help. So again, I just kept doing the next thing, going to meetings, meeting with people. I met a lot of people in the AA community. I learned about the generosity of the city, what it has to offer. And even though when I entered there that I felt that humiliation, from that, I learned what it is to be humble. Just this weekend, my meeting, we talked about step 7, and it talks about humbly asked him for take away our shortcomings, and I didn't really know the difference between humiliation and being humble, but I learned through this time. One of the other things that I worked on when I was there was getting my money in order. I had to kind of figure that out. I pretty much didn't open my mail for 2 years, so my creditors were really happy to hear from me. And I took care of that, and I just kept doing the things that I needed to do to take care, rebuilding my life basically. And it was hard, but I'd never taken that kind of responsibility before for my life. I mean, I just drank that away. And so, I was learning things that people learn probably earlier in their life. But I was just learning them. And I was kind of becoming an adult, like taking care of myself and stuff. And so, there did come a time that I was able to move out of there and get a place on my own. You had to work as part of that program, and so I was working as a server, and I knew I wanted to get back into kind of a different workforce that offered me a little bit more stability, but I was really conscious of the fact that how do I explain this great big hole in my employment history? But eventually I did pursue a career. I have a great job right now that I love, but all this took time. And it was just the time that I needed to get to where I was going. Along the way, I met some really incredible people that have entered my life from this program and from this community that helped me along the way. And I was willing to accept that help. The debt that I was telling you about, that I had my brother co-sign, this June, I was able to pay off that institution, which was just a huge relief to me. My perspective has changed. I mean, just how we learn, the book teaches us just kind of how to live our life, and that those things become natural to us. They begin to become natural to us. And to the point where there's times when I respond to a situation that it surprises me of my response, because I would have never done that in the past. And so I've grown through this program, and it's taught me a lot. Another situation happened just over the Labor Day weekend. I was with my family, and we had a medical emergency situation that I was able to help with. Like, I was present in that situation with my family, and I could help them. And that was huge. I mean, how could I ever repay the debt that when I couldn't take care of myself, they stepped in and made sure that somebody helped me to find a better way in this life. So I had a long career of drinking, and I see people that have a lot of years of sobriety, and that they got sober in their 20s, and I'm like, wow, that just is so incredible to me. And I often wonder if I, why couldn't I have done that? But to be truthful, I would not have listened to anybody that tried to tell me to do that. I just wouldn't have done it. And so, like, whenever I see people that are young people that are coming into this program, I'm like, wow, you just have an incredible opportunity if you so choose to take it. So that is the one thing that I would like to share. And that's kind of in a nutshell what I have to say. I hope that all made sense. But my name is Jane, and I'm an alcoholic, and I am grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We really appreciate it. Now we will take a break. And for those of you who wish to smoke a cigarette, there is a can out there where you can put your cigarette butts into. We'll be back in a little bit. Thank you. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Good man, Mark. Did you do anything else cool in Boston?
You're pretty tall. You're like 2 chairs tall.
Was that your coffee there?
Yes, it is.
Okay, no problem.
I'll put it over here just to eliminate any confusion.
Mine right there, so don't confuse you.
Okay, now announcements are coming in. Good evening, everyone, again. Tonight, we're going to have our second speaker, Stanley J. from Dexter, Iowa. We appreciate you coming all the way up here. And tonight, he's going to speak about his story and sponsorship. And with that, would you please welcome Stanley J.
God bless you. Good evening. Stanley Jaswinski, alcoholic, recovered. Want to pick up the pen, start the timer. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. And I want to thank Michael for inviting me. Man, he humbled me when he invited me up here. I actually met Michael for the first time about 3 years ago at an area conference, and I remember he shared his experience. It was wonderful. And I got to thank him afterwards. And in fact, I don't know if he remembers, actually he does remember. We visited briefly as he was departing the fairgrounds that afternoon. And I just thought, man, what an awesome dude. And there are people that come in our lives that influence us. And, you know, we don't necessarily know at that moment how they influence us. Well, then we'll go back a year, almost a year to the day in 2 weeks at Capital City Conference last year. And Michael was, again, a speaker. And here's been my experience in this journey that my experience is I continuously am changing. And he spoke to me differently this time. Maybe the story was the same, but I was moved to not only thank him for his time, but I was also moved to invite him to our anniversary party in Central Iowa in our district, which he, of course, said yes. And that began a relationship that has just blown the top of my head off.
Or at least the hair.
Really has. No crosstalk, please. Thank you. Okay, so at any rate, it began a wonderful relationship, and then he invited me to come up here and share my story, which, and quite frankly, without ever even hearing my story, but I'm guessing through just the assumption that I invited him, he knew I had some level of insight, the fact that I invited him, so yeah, that's a slam. But at any rate, and then a friend of mine and I, Leanne and I, she's here tonight in the audience, we came up here and checked out your group back in June, and it was like a test run, trial run, and loved it, loved the group, and love this group. It's awesome, and I like the format that it's online and that everybody in the world can hear my voice tonight. Thank you. So I'm from New Jersey originally, and I was the child of two parents who never identified themselves as alcoholics. I want to disclose that, but based on my experience thus far, it's probably a safe bet that they were alcoholic. I had a wonderful childhood. Now, I didn't have this attitude years ago. This is only a direct result of God and the 12 steps. My mother was first generation from Lithuania. She was a war bride. Her background was as a 16-year-old young lady in Lithuania. She was occupied by the Nazis and was forced to work for the Nazis. And then when Stalin from Russia came and liberated Lithuania, she got to watch her own brother be trampled by a Russian military tank in the streets of Lithuania, Vilnius, Lithuania, and watch her brother die in front of her eyes. That's my mother's childhood. My father, he was second generation, so his parents were from Poland and from the Ukraine, and he was raised in central New Jersey, and his father was, he worked in the paper mills, and his mother, she took care of the house. And when he was a senior in high school, it was coming towards the end of World War II, but he wanted to serve his country, and he enlisted not in the military, traditional military. He became a merchant marine, and he actually received his high school diploma through the mail while he was as a merchant marine in the Pacific Theater. And while he was sailing between the Pacific, between LA and Australia or wherever they were going, his ship was sunk by a Japanese U-boat, and my father was burned over 80% of his body from hot bunker oil because he was in the engine room. I share this with you so you have an understanding of what my parents' background was. Now, I'd never even considered any of this until sobriety. But they did the best that they could, and they did one heck of a lovely job of trying to raise me and providing me a home and an environment conducive to learning and growth. They did the best they could. But they were alcoholic, and as we all know, alcoholism is insidious, and alcoholism does not care about love. It does not care about anything. It just wants us dead, and it'll settle for us drunk. That's what the disease demands of us. But I wasn't aware of any of this as I was a child growing up. But I wanted you to understand the background of where I come from. And so growing up, I felt like an oddball. I was never the first one picked for kickball. I was always the last one picked for kickball. And that's really all you need to know. I'm going to read something here, and this really codifies everything about me until I came to AA. And it is this: there is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. And that's from Herbert Spencer. And that codifies everything about me. Throughout my whole life. I drank for the first time when I was 13, and it was great. I drank with impunity, like many of us probably did. And eventually, though, something changes, and I start experiencing consequences as a direct result of my drinking. I wasn't the brightest kid in the class, but I wasn't at the bottom either of the heap. God gave me some intellect, and I was able to put that to use. But I was really lost. I truly was lost for so many years. My parents divorced when I was about 8 years old, and that just completely dumbfounded me because, here I was growing up with them and maybe exposed to their arguments, exposed to their alcoholic drinking, but it's all I knew. It was okay. And but when they divorced, it just really damaged me to a degree. But we don't realize that as we're walking through that. We're not saying, oh, today I am damaged and I need to see the guidance counselor. No, we don't do that. What I do is I put glue in Frank's hair when we're on a class trip. You see, that's what I do. And I did. I got some, crazy behaviors, but the big book tells it best here in the family afterwards. A doctor said to us, years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. The entire family is, to some extent, ill. Let families realize as they start their journey that all will not be fair weather. And the story continues. And that described me to a T. And when I came in Alcoholics Anonymous and read that verse, the clouds parted. I've had many awakenings in this journey of sobriety, many moments of aha. I worked for a company, and in 1993, through my alcoholism, through my behavior, I had a tough time showing up to work on time. And I worked for a scheduled airline at the time, and it's really important. You hear that operative word there, scheduled airline. People want to depart at the appropriate time to make their destination. And as a required crew member, if I'm not there, then they are going to be upset. And if you do that enough times, you're going to get the attention of the chief pilot or the director of operations or your dispatcher, which I did. And also through my behavior, I would drink and drive. And when you get pulled over by a law enforcement officer, again, that they don't like that, and they issue you a summons. We call that DUI. And after so many of those, it garners the attention of different federal agencies. So I'm getting everybody's attention. And through all that, my company said, we recognize you as a valuable employee. And it talks about it to the employers. We're going to put you through treatment. And this was in 1993. So I'm given an opportunity in 1993 to get sober. And honestly, I didn't think I was alcoholic. And that's not good. So I made it through treatment, and everybody was happy. And within 2 years of that treatment, I lost that career as a direct result of my alcoholic behavior. And it would be another, my sobriety date is June 22nd of 2012. So you do the math, 17 years of more drinking. There is a period of dry sobriety in that gap between 1998 and 2003. I actually ceased, I abstained from drinking. And I did that for another human being, that was for my son. The book tells us we can't do it for another human being. It doesn't work. Frothy emotional appeal does not work. And I remember, I stayed sober 5 years. Things improved. Bills got paid. Relationship with my spouse improved. And in 2003, just got done building a deck on my house with my lovely wife at the time. And I said to her, I would really like a Tanqueray and tonic. And she said, you can just go to your local Casey's and get a 6-pack. And she said, hey, don't drink the whole 6-pack tonight. And I said, that is a grand idea. And I did that. I did just that. I drank I don't remember what I drank, but I did not drink the entire 6-pack. And for the next several years, I would control my drinking. But here's the caveat about alcoholism and whether or not I'm an alcoholic. If I drank one beer that night and I went to bed, was I then in the moment with my wife, going to bed, in the moment thinking about the day ahead? Absolutely not. I was thinking about the other 5 beers in the refrigerator. And that is what part makes me alcoholic. Page 44. So I love quoting pages, but I don't have them memorized yet. I'm getting there, Michael. I'm getting there. But sometimes I'll take some meetings into a county jail facility, and you'll get these men, and they'll just like, I don't know if I'm alcoholic, and they're looking at their consequences, and I'll say, well, here, let's just go to 44 because it's really simple. It says, if, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if, when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. Bam, end of story, done. We're going to keep it that simple. And Dr. Silkworth talks about the allergy effect. And I remember when I heard that for the first time, I actually read through that for the first time with my sponsor. It was amazing. So let's fast forward now. I'm working for an organization, and I've got about 16 years with them. And again, that pesky little problem of showing up work on time is starting to reveal itself again to all of my employers, my co-workers. And in 2012, they make the strong suggestion that if I want to keep my job, I am going to do something about it. So they send me to treatment. I'm going to tell you what, I was treatment king in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I was listening to your force. If you've been to treatment, you're familiar with the force. And by 2 weeks, man, I was sitting there listening to your force. And I was like judging, like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're good. You're a pass. Go to the counselor. Yeah, they're into it. And I'm telling you what, the reemergence of ego, I don't know if I was really, truly surrendered if I was alcoholic any longer. I just know that I almost lost my job, got the heat off of me, and I'm moving through treatment pretty darn good. I'm really passionate about speaker meetings, and you're going to find out why right now. It's a speaker who I believe was a conduit for the God, for God, for my God, your God. He was a conduit that day. So this speaker comes into the treatment center, and tells his story. And at the conclusion of him talking, I was not consciously aware of any of this I'm about to tell you, but I was surrendered and I was ready and willing to do absolutely anything he asked me to do at that moment. Miracle. That's a miracle. You just heard a miracle. Because an hour before that, I was just going to finish up treatment. I was going to get a sponsor like they asked me to. I was going to show them I've been to a few meetings. And you probably would have a different speaker tonight. But that man spoke to me directly. And this is why I'm passionate about speaker meetings. We don't know when we're going to have an effect on somebody. I will say this, I have since had a conversation with this man, and I've intimately shared with him my gratitude and how he has affected my life. I felt just moved, so he knew that. Just so grateful. Part of my behavior, I'm alcoholic, but I also do other substances alcoholically. And so when I was in treatment, I was confused. I was confused about what I am. And I share this with men in the county facility, because if anybody's been to a treatment center or to a correctional facility, we're dealing with a lot of people beyond alcoholism. And in fact, we'll deal with many people, just like what Herbert Spencer said, contempt as part of investigation. They think that their problem is only this substance here. And so what I hope to try to do, or at least share with them of my experience, is that, well, let's look at the bigger picture. And that's what that man, he spoke to me that day because he told me about his journey with other substances, but he kept bringing it back to his alcoholic behavior, his alcoholic nature. Just absolutely broke me that day. I'm so grateful that he broke me. And I walked up to him, and his name is Bob M. from Des Moines. You may know that name. And I said, Bob, what do I do next? And he said, okay, I'll tell you what, you go to this meeting, Three Legacies meeting in Des Moines. He said, they have a newcomers meeting. Go to that. Then they have your regular meeting at 8 p.m. And in fact, if you want, correction, they have a regular meeting at 6 p.m., newcomers at 7:15, and then another meeting at 8 p.m. And then while you're there, I bet you're going to be able to find your sponsor that you're looking for treatment. And he said, hey, when you do that, you get a sponsor, do what they ask of you to do. I remember him saying that, just a little touch. He said, do what they ask you to do. I did exactly what that man asked of me. I did exactly. I started going to that meeting. Now, here's another miracle. I walk into this meeting, maybe about 150 people there. I don't know anybody. And, you know, just like when we were all coming in tonight, there's a row of people extending their hands, welcome to the meeting. Well, this man, his name is Steve H., extends his hand, shakes my hand, says, welcome. Great. We'll go the next week. I walk in that meeting, and there's that man, Steve H. I know this guy, right? He introduced himself to me last week. I got a friend now. And we're standing shoulder to shoulder. People are coming in. And I'm at like week 4 now, and I'm getting close to the wire. I need a sponsor to satisfy the treatment. And I'm like, I'm looking for a sponsor. And he doesn't make it easy on me. He goes, oh, yeah. It's like that, yeah. And for those of you that can't see, the speaker is turning his head around the audience. Bad, Michael, I know. And so I turned to him. I said, well, would you consider sponsoring me? And he said, absolutely. We can talk about that. And so, needless to say, Steve took me on a journey and began to teach me the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Changed my life. Changed my life. Again, it started with that man, Bobby M. Okay? He spoke to me. So, I identified with him. And thank God that Bob M. is a big book thumper, because he knew what the solution was be for me, for an alcoholic of my type. He didn't really know me, but he knows what it was for himself. And so he gave me some direction. And that is so key in sponsorship and in AA. This book is a textbook. When I learned how to fly an airplane, I did not go to the library, read a book on flying, and then go to the airport and say, oh, I'm going to rent the airplane and go fly by myself for the next 50 hours and learn how to fly. Thank you very much. No. They said, we're going to team you up with a flight instructor. And then this flight instructor would then have a lesson plan for every segment of the training of what he wanted to take me through. That's what this big book is. It's a lesson plan. So for those of you who are currently sponsored or sponsoring other people, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who have maybe not yet gotten a sponsor, hopefully you understand a little bit better that it's not that big of a deal, but it's a critical point. Boy, I wanted to say so many things when I first introduced myself. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life today, which it continues to blow my mind. And honestly, when I started working with Steve, I had no idea what journey I was embarking on. But he was a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He is sponsored, and he sponsors other men, and so he knew exactly what to do with me. Opened the big book, and we started, get this, page 1, the title page, and the journey began. He asked me to give him the standard, give me a call once a week to check in. Steve is from the Des Moines area, and I live in a smaller town, as you all know, from Dexter, now in Iowa, and it's about a 35-mile road trip. And after about a month working with Steve, he encouraged me to start finding meetings in my local area. And I remember I was like, who doesn't do this? They're going to know I'm in AA. Little did I know that 6 months later I'd be shouting from the rooftops I was in AA. But at that point I'm a little hesitant, and but so I listened to my sponsor, and I started attending local meetings. So he and I would continue to get together every Tuesday night, and up until 2 years ago, which was 5 years of sobriety, he and I continued to get together every Tuesday night. Once we worked through the steps, then we went to other literature. We went into the 12 and 12. And then we went into the service manual. And then we went into AA Comes of Age. And now we're in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. Do you see the pattern there? If you told me that 7 years ago that I'd be reading these very dry books and be excited about it, you see where I'm going with that. Today, I'm hungry for the literature. In fact, I saw on your table there, I can't remember the title of that new book with Bill Wilson's talks. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Check it out. I've already gone through that with a friend of mine, with a sister in sobriety, and it's incredible. It's incredible, some of the talks that Bill Wilson was sharing, and I am just like Bill Wilson. It's fantastic. I can identify with that man in so many ways. I can identify with Dr. Bob as well. But, so, he's walking me through the steps, and I'm starting to hit meetings out in my area. And I'll be honest, they're discussion meetings. It's okay. I only know what I know. And I'm hungry, and I'm walking through the steps with my sponsor. He also encouraged me to attend a big book study group. And guess who one of the chair people was at meeting? That very same Bobby M. Imagine that. And another gentleman by the name of John G. from Des Moines. Incredible men, carry a wonderful message of sobriety to the community. So now I'm attending a big book study group. And they're going through it page by page, line by line. They're dissecting this big book, and then they're giving us history on the big book. So Steve is taking me through the big book, sharing me what history he's accumulated. I'm going to a study group as well on Wednesday nights, getting their insight on history. And what I started to feel was like, I'm starting to get connected to this AA program because I'm learning the history, the roots. And I don't know who it is, but I don't know where the heck I'm going if I don't know where it is where I'm from. And once I start to understand where I come from, I can appreciate the now, but then I can also look ahead and look forward to the journey ahead. And today, the miracle of that is that I don't necessarily need to know the destination. In fact, I don't know what the destination is. And man, if you told me that in 2011, I was like, no, man, I got to have a destination. Just ends justifies the means. I mean, all of that stuff. But today, it's just completely different. So I'm getting exposed to all this, and this is all I know. And about 2 years into it, we started a literature meeting in a small town, and they needed a GSR. And I was like, well, I'll be honest, it was ego-driven. I like to be a leader. But I don't want you to know that, so I'm admitting it now. And I became a GSR. And you know what? I did the best I could at the time and with what I knew. Did I attend a lot of district meetings? No, not too many. But I was available for the group. I was getting plugged in. I was getting to know people in our fellowship and in service. And it was just a wonderful experience. But my service work hasn't stopped since then. Today, my home group is the Dexter Step Study Group in Dexter, Iowa. We are a literature-based meeting. The first Sunday, we have a speaker. Then all the subsequent Sundays, we go into the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 and 12, and the Little Red Book, which is a beautiful, beautiful book that teaches people through the steps. And if you've not read it before, I encourage you to check it out. The Big Book even tells us that the authors tell us, seek out other information. And so I am conscientious of where I'm looking for it. I'll come to it. Conference-approved literature. But there's a lot of non-conference approved literature which is equally helpful and insightful and beneficial to our journeys in this deal. The Red Book, I believe, with all my heart, is one of them. At any rate, so Dexter Step Study Group, and currently I'm the GSR for that group. I'm also the alternate treasurer. And then for our district, I'm the alternate. And I'll tell you, in our district, it's tough to get people to volunteer to get into service. So we have to, we do what we have to do. This kind of leads me into a sense of responsibility. Don't ask me to say responsibility statement. I haven't memorized it yet. But where I'm going with this is through my sponsor, taking me through the steps, and then through him guiding me through the service manual, and then through his own behavior. My own sponsor takes a meeting to the Newton County facility, our state facility, in a jail in Central Iowa once a month. He goes to treatment centers and shares his experience. And he sponsors other men. And he's a member, active member of his home group. And he goes to his home group business meetings. So I'm witnessing this. He didn't tell me to do this. Everything I do today, he did not tell me to do this. However, he made it look so attractive. It was just natural for me to perhaps want to do it. So like today, when I go to an AA meeting, I don't go to an AA meeting with white knuckles anymore. God has removed the obsession to drink. I am recovered. Our first promise in the Big Book, right? We are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, yada, 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 right? So that's what I am today. So now with that grace that I have been given, I have a responsibility. And so when I attend a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous today, it's not because I'm having a bad day. Absolutely not. I want to be present. I want to be present for someone just like I was that first day and Steve put his hand out to me. I want to be that person to put their hand out. And if you come to our home group in Dexter, you'll actually see me usually sitting on a chair out front. with a few other of my brothers and sisters in this program. And we'll introduce ourselves to the newcomers. That's a bright spot in my day. And if you do that long enough, you are undoubtedly going to get someone who's going to say, hey, can you show me how to do this? Okay, so watch out, because what's going to happen then is, full disclosure, the first time I was asked, it's an inconvenience, right? I may be recovered, God may have removed the compulsion, but I'm still selfish and self-centered to the core. And now you're going to inconvenience me. And I remember this first guy asked me to walk him through the steps and sponsor him. And he lived 22 miles away from my house, couldn't drive. And so I'm driving in the wintertime in snowstorms back and forth to his house. And I remember thinking to myself, well, heck, when I was working with Steve, I was driving to his house. Now here I am, I'm driving to this dude's house. I mean, right? But I had to go through that ego deflation. God knows what character defects are present in my life. God already knows. And I just have to be willing to take the action and to allow him to remove those character defects. I am not perfect. I'm not white as snow. Nor will I ever be. But what I've learned thus far is I will continue to improve if I continue to be awake to his presence. And as he and I, his name is Brett, or is Brett, he's still alive, excuse me. He's not with us in the fellowship, but he's still with us. And as I started to work with Brett, a whole new dimension of this big book opened up to me. And it got me thinking about the days when I used to teach people how to fly. I used to teach people how to fly too. And I had to write a lesson plan. I remember that. And I started to become aware of this great responsibility that God has now put on my shoulders. Go out and now carry this message to another suffering alcoholic. Humbling, okay? Humbling. And he and I journeyed together for over 3 years. And I never could tell a man that I love you. The age I grew up watching Archie Bunker, it just can't tell another man I love you. And I can look at a man in the eye and tell him, I love you, Michael. And I can say it in front of dozens of people. I am immune because I know what my motive is and I know where it's coming from. And it's coming from something that I can't even describe to you, but it's incredibly wonderful. And if you go through these steps, the way they're outlined in this book, the way I was taken through them, or the way somebody else here was taken through them, it's amazing what might happen. But I still find myself being contemptuous part of the investigation. Today, I have a couple of other guys that God's put in my life, and they live around me. And where I'm going with this is that through this journey of being sponsored and sponsoring, or being willing to sponsor other people, I don't even feel alone anymore. Actually, I live alone though, right? I'm a single guy. I live in this house. And but I don't feel alone anymore. In fact, my back door until I go to bed at night is left unlocked. And everybody who knows me in AA knows that back door is unlocked. And you just knock and walk on in. And it's just beautiful that I have friends that just are willing to share their journey with me. Today, we were driving up here, and I'm spending it with a man who has given up his time to me. And I've only got a few more minutes left, but on the lines of sponsorship and this man's influences, I don't keep sponsorship down to just one human being. Right? Steve took me through the steps for the first time, and he is my sponsor. I'm okay with that. But I am not beholden to Steve. And Steve knows that. But I have so many other teachers now, incredible teachers. Gentleman over here by the name of Lonnie, he's in the audience tonight. When I attended this meeting in my community, he reached out his hand and he said, let's go for a motorcycle ride together. Let's just go have a sandwich. What Lonnie was teaching was how to live life outside the rings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I didn't know any of this. In fact, it was kind of an inconvenience because I was busy at work and I was like, okay, we'll go for a motorcycle ride. But what he was showing me was what can happen beyond these rooms. And Lonnie and I have just journeyed, who I love dearly, have just continued this journey. And we've been just all over. We've been in Springfield, Illinois together. We're now in Sioux Falls together. We've just gone through a lot of stuff together. And but if I was contemptuous prior to investigation, none of this would have been possible. None of it. Okay, I got about 4 minutes left. So, great miracles. You probably picked up on the fact that I worked for a scheduled air carrier over 25 years ago. I'm a drunk. The FAA doesn't like that. This is just my story. I want to share with you folks just the miracles of this. In sobriety, I am so good with who I am today, with what I do today, and who I work for today. It's not who I was meant to be. I was meant to do something different, but alcoholism robbed me of that. And I don't have a resentment. Remember, it's insidious. It does not care how much I am passionate about a certain career. Flight. It doesn't care how much I love my wife. It doesn't care. It just wants me dead, but it'll settle for me drunk. So in sobriety, God shows me that there's so much more to living. 4 months ago, I attended, 3 months ago, whenever it was Cornhusker Roundup, and there was a speaker we heard. I didn't even know what he said, but I'm driving home with Leanne from Cornhusker Roundup back to Dexter, and the intuitive voice says, there's an airline pilot shortage. You've got a lot of experience. You need to go for it one more time. It didn't come from my ego. It was just whispered in my head. And I started a journey of going through a process of becoming eligible to do that again. And as I was doing that, I found this sense of enthusiasm and welling up in me, excitement again, this zest, like, are you kidding me? Is this possible? And I will tell you, at this point, I have an open invitation for an actual face-to-face interview with a regional airline, which is a great deal, pending a receipt of some documents from the FAA, which they're finalizing. You know, we have that checkered past that we need to clear up. But you've taught me how to do that. And I'm not sitting here counting down the days. Well, I am a little bit, but I'm not. I live in the now. And the fact is that Tom Iverson, he's a great speaker. This man killed a family in his story. He eventually became, though, a warden of a penitentiary, right? And he talks about that, you know what, we as humans, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he talks about we as humans make all these rules and regulations. You know what? To God, they're nothing. If God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. And there's absolutely nothing that we can do if we're truly surrendered to his presence. And that really defines where I'm at today on my journey. I'll finish off. I love this. I get goosebumps. I just love this right here. And so thank you again for having me up here. You truly humbled me. I've made some wonderful friends, lifelong friends. Got a new speaker, perhaps in the future. Our name starts with an E. I'll leave it at that. Our book is meant to be suggestive only, and we realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.